Hey guys, I'm John. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here with Derek Smith.
How are you?
Unacceptable Fringe.
Good to be here.
And we're in Spruce Grove.
Yeah, in your studio, in nature.
Yeah, in my studio with the big, blue, beautiful Alberta flag, and there's a good headwind.
There we go. It's a good day to be out, especially when it's going to rain.
Yeah, it's going to rain. And you know, you never really know what's going to happen in these videos. We might meet somebody, but we just decided to go for a walk.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a conversation together in my studio.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a great studio. I tell you, you got a lot of room, a lot of space.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nice, you know, Spruce Grove. Like, we moved here from Calgary last year.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll tell you, I can't get enough of just walking around out here in the open.
Yeah.
No cars, no mass population. It's kind of a nice break from reality.
Yeah, well, Spruce Grove is a little bit out of the way for me, too, to get out here.
Right.
It's a small town, kind of just on the edge of Edmonton. You feel like you're still part of the city or what?
A little bit. I mean, anytime we need Edmonton, we're only about 15, 20 minutes away. So,
yeah.
I mean, all the amenities of the city are there, but you get the quietness of the smaller town. So,
yeah,
that's kind of what we were shooting for.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, so, you know, I always like to just have random conversations with people on the street, but this video I kind of more just want to focus on a conversation with you. Sure. So, I was telling you before we started, I love your channel. I've been following it for years. And for all the way back in the COVID days.
Yeah, it's been a long ride, you know. Yeah. It's Unacceptable Fringe kind of spawned after how the Prime Minister stole freedom.
Yeah. And
I was doing a lot of interviews and sitting on a lot of channels, and a YouTuber I knew at the time said, you should get on YouTube and, you know, maybe make your voice heard. And
yeah, I
said, well, let's give it a shot. And here we are 4 years later. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
Well, it's been a wild ride. You've had a big influence. Now, you got really behind this independence movement. Like, you're one of the main faces of it.
I hear that all the time, but but I always just say I'm just another guy who wants it. So.
Yeah. But, like, okay, not to put you on the spot, though, but have you noticed a change in your audience? Because, like, people from other parts of Canada, what do they say to you?
Yeah, you know, I've had a lot of people that they typically, like, I used to cover federal politics. I was huge on the PR wagon during the federal election. And what I found is as soon as I heard about Alberta possibly leaving, now this was around when Danielle Smith said to both Mark Carney and Pierre, whoever wins the election, you've got 6 months or you're going to face a national unity crisis.
Yeah.
So when I heard that, you know, the rumblings had been going around Alberta for, we'll say the better part of 5-6 years, especially around COVID, that, hey, we'd be better off. Maybe we should go. It's always been a discussion, but it was ramping up during those years.
Yeah.
So I got really excited. I thought, hey, this is our chance. This is our moment.
Yeah.
A lot of people were upset from other provinces saying, you know, I don't feel like you cover federal politics anymore. And a lot of it came down to after I went to my first meeting with the Alberta Prosperity Project. And I started looking at the actual benefits of leaving, no longer just, well, I'm sick of Trudeau or I'm sick of the Liberals.
Yeah.
And it came down to a point where I said, well, why aren't we focusing on this? Because essentially part of the country is going to leave.
Yeah.
Canadians should actually be concerned about this. They should be thinking about it. It's not always just about Alberta and oil and jobs and everything else that people think are associated with Alberta. It's about the entire country and its identity as a country, and we're losing it quicker than ever. I mean, now you have 4 provinces, when you look at BC's movement, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Quebec, that are all talking about the possibility of leaving Confederation. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree. It is a big deal. And was there a turning point or a moment for you that, like, I'll tell you what mine was. When that lady, that Indigenous woman, the elderly woman, got trampled at the trucker convoy in front of Parliament. Did you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. You know, for me, it was when I met Tamara Leach. Like, we had kind of talked back and forth. And maybe about 6 months after the convoy, just before she got arrested the second time, she was over at our place and we met in person. And we had a long discussion about her going to Ottawa to defend Canada, to raise Canada up from where it had gone and where it could be again.
Right.
She kind of stated that it was the final nail in the coffin, you know, like she was part of the Maverick Party, which was focused on separating from Alberta. And Tamara just kind of said, like, for me, once they enacted the Emergency Act, it was kind of the final nail that, okay, this can't be fixed.
Yeah.
You know, and again, once I sat with APP and you start learning how the system works, how we need 7 of 10 provinces to change anything constitutionally.
Yeah.
It's an uphill, impossible feat. Not even a David versus Goliath for Alberta. It's near impossible to get anything done. So it's more, what options do we have? So that was kind of my turning point.
Yeah. Well, okay, you tuned in my live stream with Igor yesterday on his channel.
Yeah.
Igor Ritzlev, go follow him. Give him a like,
great.
give him a like and subscribe. But at one point, I don't know if you saw this part, there were two guys from Nova Scotia.
I missed that bit.
Oh, okay. They were young guys.
Okay.
And one of the guys was like, "Why can't we just fix Canada?" Right? And I've heard this a lot, but like coming from those guys, like young guys.
Yeah. The question I always ask is how. You know, it's been the one question we've asked people since this all began,
Yeah.
especially in the last year. Give us one good reason to stay.
Yeah.
And every time, granted, you give people that platform, but anytime you talk about it, it's always, well, because it's Canada.
Yeah.
Or, oh, because I love Canada. Well, I love Canada too.
Yeah.
But what you may love about Canada doesn't exist anymore. It's been trampled on by globalists that really just don't care about where we head in the future except for their pocketbooks. So it's you know, again, I'm always open to listening, and I think that's what's good about what you do is that you're talking to people. But again, as many episodes as I watch of yours, nobody really gives a good solid reason to stay.
No, but I do see it in the comments where people there's people in the middle.
Yeah.
That I think I think these guys that I'm talking about, I'm going to publish the video probably tomorrow. Or maybe the next day. I think I made some headway with them. I think they actually support it. They just needed to hear it, you know. But I think that's a reasonable thing to say to just fix Canada. But we've been trying for my whole life, right? And before that, the Reform Party, I brought up Preston Manning.
You know, I've spoken. We've had Preston Manning on the channel, and I've spoken with him. I've spoken with Pierre. I've spoken with a number of politicians.
Yeah.
And I've asked them all in the background, off the record, the same questions because I know they don't get comfortable answering them on camera.
Yeah.
But I've always asked them that. I said, you know, even with Pierre, let's say you get a super majority. You know, you fix the problems Alberta has, whether it's the 9 bad laws, whether it's, you know, taxation, whether it's, you know, job creation or putting a stomp on immigration. You fix those problems. When you look at Canada statistically, the Liberals have been in power for the majority of the time we've been a country.
Yeah.
You know, the Conservatives get the occasional stay. So if Pierre were to change everything, as soon as he's out and a Liberal gets in again, it all just gets bulldozed and we're right back to square one.
I mean, conceivably, Pierre probably could fix things, but he would need a super majority and probably like 4 or 5 terms in a row.
Yeah.
And then he could probably make some significant changes. But if he started making the changes on his first term, he wouldn't get a second term.
No, and that's the problem is that we try to break down for people, and I've always said to those who are in Ontario or Quebec on our shows, it's no offense to them, but you have this little pocket from Toronto all the way up to Montreal where 50% of the country lives.
Yeah.
And they're in charge of who runs the country.
Yeah.
So if you don't play by their wants and needs, you're out of a job.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that Pierre ran into in the election. You watch, he had an unstoppable machine working for him during the federal election. Like, I remember going to his rally in Edmonton.
Yeah.
The building was packed,
Yeah.
absolutely packed to the brim. The airport hangar in Calgary, like he had all the support in the universe, even in British Columbia.
Yeah.
Yet he didn't win.
Yeah.
Why? A Toronto vote, Windsor, Hamilton, all the way up to Montreal. They just all voted Liberal.
Yeah. Hey, what's your opinion of Alberta independence?
Go Alberta.
Go Alberta.
There we go. See, that's why I say welcome to Spruce Grove.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Well, I gotta get back. We got some stuff to do, but
Oh, hey,
okay.
hey, have a good day. Thank you. Hey.
This is why I didn't think you were going to get a lot of controversy coming over to Spruce Grove, because there's a lot of conservative, like-minded people here that actually support independence in this town.
Okay, well, they were the only 2 people. There's another guy over there at the park. But, you know, look, I've made videos like this in minus 30.
Yeah.
I got a little studio in my house, but it's not a place, I don't know, my style is get out and talk to people.
Right.
So here I am.
It's you know, it's really surreal when we came out here.
Yeah.
The mindset versus the big city of Calgary. I think that's why as we move forward with this campaign towards October 19th, we have to focus on cities. You know, I commend, you know, Chris Scott, all those guys who are still doing the small town talks and things like that. But what we're not seeing is a push to the major cities. I know other groups like APP have those planned, but there needs to be a discussion in those cities. We have to get, because there's a different mindset over there.
Right.
You know, a lot of those people don't experience the thing that the rural community does. So that's kind of the challenge now.
Yeah, and they're never gonna just come out to a meeting, right?
No.
So actually, we got to go to them. And what I was thinking in the back of my head, and I don't know if you're down for this, but if we actually planned something with a couple other creators too, and started just having an event where like we're all gonna just kind of, I'm thinking in front of, is it raining now?
Start to, yeah.
Let's head back to the car.
Sure.
We're maybe in front of like the stadium or something.
Yep.
It's a good little plaza there. And then we just meet people and talk to them.
Well, one thing I've talked to people about is to get the conversation started. I don't know, like you'd mentioned earlier, we have the live stream.
Yeah.
We launched a line of t-shirts that we're donating all the proceeds to charity that has 10 reasons on the back that Alberta needs to leave Canada or should leave Canada.
Yeah.
The reason for those shirts is that if you're at the store, if you're at the bank, wherever you are, you can get the conversation started. And they're very relaxed reasons.
Yeah.
They're not aggressive. But what I said was, when you think about the Calgary Stampede, you think about K-Days at Edmonton, the time to get people talking is when the cities are full of people like that.
Yeah.
So you want to be out in public. I've talked many times about maybe doing with other creators like a change my mind type thing where we set up a table and maybe chat with people on a sidewalk somewhere, or like you said, if we get an arena or something that's beneficial. I often invite, like you do, anybody with a differing opinion, come to those events, come to those shows. At the Big Four building, somebody pulled the fire alarm because they were mad that everybody was in there. Come in and be a part of the discussion.
Yeah.
That's how we get everybody on the right side.
Okay, so 2 things there. So I have got 3 things. Got rain on my lens. I hope it's not too smudgy. 3 things. I have bought your shirt.
Yeah.
And so I'll plug it and I'll leave a link below, and
Right.
you get the whole deal there. So great idea. And then let's keep walking.
Sure.
But this way, the wind will blow the rain at the camera, back of the camera. And then, so buy a shirt, buy things, buy merch, support his channel.
Well, it's going to support veterans
And
or the
yeah.
referendum, one of
Yeah.
the two. Once we have a date for the referendum and where donations are going, that's when we're going to send them out.
Yeah, totally good idea. And then it also gets the conversation started. That's
Absolutely.
really important. But then also, if you're talking about having a meeting kind of thing in public,
Yep.
let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm down for that.
Absolutely.
Let's get a bunch of creators. I don't want this to just be me, because we're just even one person, but a bunch of personalities together, and do like a let's talk kind of. I don't want to say Charlie Kirk.
Well, no, but if we could get, myself, you, John Bolton, PJ the Belt, Alberta Proud Dad, maybe Chris Scott, some other guys. I'd love to get Keith Wilson there. I'll talk to Keith once we have somewhere picked out. Or Jeff Rath, somebody who has a little bit of the legal knowledge.
Yeah.
Maybe Corey Morgan.
Yeah.
You get a big group like that we can have an open discussion with people. It's time to tone down the aggressiveness of I know what's best and other people saying you need to shut up. And now's the time to start saying, okay, why can't you pay your bills?
Yeah.
Why are you having a hard time buying food? How come gas is so expensive?
Yeah.
Have you been able to find a job if you would lose your job, or would you be able to find a job if you were fired tomorrow? And what do you think needs to be fixed in Alberta if we're going to fix Canada?
Yeah.
Right? And that starts the conversation to maybe open some doors and make people aware that, hey, it's not doable in the current climate, that we need to leave.
Yeah. It's kind of a bit of a sales tactic, but if you spend more time listening to people,
Yes.
right, they actually like you more.
Yeah.
And it's hard because if you're a creator, right, your job is to talk.
Yeah.
But when you go to these things, you just listen. And then if somebody does say 60-70% of the talking in a conversation, they're going to think you're the most interesting person,
Absolutely.
even though all they did was talk about themselves. Right? But it's like that's an actual human psychology strategy that salespeople use and politicians use. And I'm not saying use it in a greasy way, but use it in a way that's like compassionate. We want to hear people out. We want to bring them over to our side.
It's one of the things that we've started talking about on our live streams since the signatures were collected.
Yeah.
Was, okay, so if you look at town halls, if you watch Jeff or Mitch or, Corey or any of these guys at their public events, they're always telling everybody, here's the benefits, here's why it's beneficial, this is why we need to leave, this is why things will never change.
Okay.
So I said those information sessions have been great, but now's the time that we listen, right? We've done the talking.
Okay.
Now's the time for that middle ground that's on the fence, that we start asking them, how are you finding your day-to-day, right?
Yeah.
How's your expenses? How's your future looking if things continue the way they are?
Yeah.
You know, listen to them, because what they're going to give you is that open door when they say, well, the price of food is outrageous, or, our neighborhood's, you know, delayed on construction because there's mass immigration coming in and people can't afford houses.
Yeah.
Glad you brought that up. Now it's time to talk about why independents might support those thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So it gives you that foot in the door by listening. So I think the time for talking at them is done. And it's definitely time to hear what they have to say.
Time to start listening. I was reflecting on this as well. Every conversation changes the future.
Yes,
And,
absolutely.
and like that's like some kind of Zen Buddha thing to say, but it's actually so true. And every conversation that you and I have, but also with our friends and family, and all of our viewers, if you talk to 3 people, you know, I think if you sign a petition, that's now we're at 500,000. We're at 900,000. Talk to three people.
Yeah.
We can clear 1 million. Talk to 4 or 5.
I think
That's how we win this.
I think what's important is that everybody keeps talking about a leader. We need a figurehead.
Okay.
We need a leader at the top of this. I know everybody comes out in my videos and says, Keith Wilson, let's get Keith in there.
Yeah.
You know, other people recommend other people. But I always say, no, the best leader for this is guys like me and you, Albertans. All of us are the leaders of this. If we do what you just said, talk to people, hear what they have to say, convince 3 people, that means we're leading the charge. And it wasn't done by Danielle Smith. It wasn't done by Keith Wilson or Jeff Rath or a figurehead. It was done by the people saying enough is enough. So I don't think it's time for a leader. I think that comes after. I think this is the time for Albertans to lead the charge and say, this is our moment, you know, and we're only going to get one shot at this. So we got to make it count.
That's really profound. I've often been the guy thinking a leader, and personally I do really like Keith Wilson. I hope he's the first president. I'm just gonna start wearing his pin right now so I can say it. Anyway, but I mean, look, that's all beside the point, right? Tongue in cheek kind of talk. But you're right. Everybody has 3 or 4 people you can talk to. So here's a call to action. Go and talk to 2 or 3 people after you're done this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't already subscribe to Fringe, you probably do. But go and resubscribe.
Go get it done. Like, what are you waiting for? Really? Come on.
Yeah. And then go talk to like 3 friends, or go talk to 1 friend. Phone somebody up that you don't know if they support it or not, and start off in a really general way. Here's how I would do it. I'd be like, hey, I saw some guys, you know, waving Alberta flags. What's that all about? Right? And then, oh, that's about them terrible separatists. Okay, just shut your mouth after that.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, actually, you know what? I was wondering that too. Okay, they're probably feeling you out too, right? Go back and forth like that.
You know, I was talking with a friend of mine the other day in the area that, you know, they didn't know, like they knew I was on YouTube, but they don't really follow politics online. So I said, you know, I've been really busy covering what's happening in Alberta.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, so how do you feel about what's going on in Alberta? And I said, well, how do you feel about what's happening in Alberta? And we found actually some common ground that they said, look, I'm just looking for some answers. I don't really know how I feel about it. So I just says, well, here's the reasons I think it's beneficial, but here's the reasons I think people are afraid as what's coming. And what people have to understand is something that Mitch brought up towards the end of the signature campaign. What you're asking people to do right now isn't door knocking for an election. It's not saying, you know, do you support Liberals or NDP or Conservatives? You're asking people, are you ready to be your own country? Are you ready to leave Canada? That's an emotional, big decision. So it's not as easy of, hey, do you want to wear, you know, black on Thursday? It's this is a life-changing event, and there's no going back. So, you know, we got to be patient with those people, and we again hear their concerns. And if they're right against it, like, pick your battles. I always say, is this the hill I want to die on? Probably not.
Well, it's funny you said that too, because in my live stream I use that exact phrase, and I'm like, I actually am willing to figuratively die on this hill insofar as, like, I will stake my reputation and I will do everything I possibly can. This movement isn't going to fail because I didn't do everything I possibly could. But at the same time, like, you know, I'm not like, I don't know. I want to win, you know, and I'm going to do everything I can.
Everybody who believes in independence wants to win. And even those who are on the middle ground, or even those who are against, who decide to come over eventually, they'll want to win as well. The key to winning is just understanding what's important to our lifestyles. And it's the one thing I think people avoid when it comes to elections. They always vote for the popularity contest. As well, I like Pierre. And I even asked people during the last federal election, why do you like Pierre? Like, why do you vote Conservative? Even though I'm pretty much a conservative voter at heart, I still ask people, like, what makes you vote conservative? And they just said, well, I like how he snaps back at people in the House of Commons, or I like that he's not Justin Trudeau. And I'd say, well, okay, but what about his policies? And when you ask those questions, a lot of people didn't know the policies.
Yeah.
And I would always encourage people during that election, vote based on policy, do some research.
Yeah.
Even if you're a conservative voter,
Yeah.
a liberal, not that in Alberta, not that a liberal policy makes sense to Albertans, but it may make sense to your lifestyle,
Yeah.
to what is beneficial to you in your job or what you do for a living. But also think about the future of your province, your city, your country. And that's, I think, what a lot of people got to think about is,
Yeah.
I love the Canadian flag,
Yeah.
you know, but at the same time, I'm an Albertan.
Yeah.
And I know what this province has given us since we moved here in the 90s from Manitoba.
Right.
So I want to protect that for my kids. I want to protect their future. So I understand what's important for our lifestyle. And I think that's what we have to talk to people about.
Okay, but like this whole emotional thing, right? So the one of the strongest arguments I feel in favor of independence, or of staying in Canada, I mean, is patriotism.
Yep.
And it's not a strong argument in my mind. It's very weak, but it seems to be strong enough for most people. And I don't feel like we do a good job of reaching out to that. I want to tell you, there's two people that I personally know, close people to me. I'm pretty sure neither of them have ever voted once in their life, or that they even know anything about any of the policies. They're completely apathetic, but they've recently flipped over to Forever Canada because of just the emotional thing.
Yeah.
They're like, that's it. So that's a bit disheartening to say that, but I just want to be honest, you know? Like, what do you think?
I think that when you talk to people about patriotism, I think the question is why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
Somebody in my family told me that if Alberta were to vote to leave, they're going to leave Alberta.
Yeah.
I said, no, you're not. You're not going to pack up and
No.
move. You're not going to get out of here. The only thing that really changes is who's in charge of the money
Yeah.
and our negotiation power at the table.
Yeah.
Nobody puts a wall up around the province. Nobody shuts out the other guys. So, you know, I always try to ask people, well, what is it that you find is so worth staying in Canada for? Again, ask them the question.
Yeah.
If they say, well, I love the flag or I love my country.
Yeah.
Okay, but do you not love Alberta? Do you not love where you live?
Yeah.
You know, what if things could be better? How have your leaders treated the country?
Right.
When you look at First Nations that don't have clean drinking water, it's
Yeah.
2026. There's no reason for that.
Yeah.
You know, you look at Naheed Nenshi using First Nations people as token puppets to get a point across on the legislature steps, or you look at Mark Carney saying, well, I'd love to build a pipeline, but First Nations are in the way. It's all just there for theater.
Yeah.
So when you really think about the country, what are your leaders doing to represent it on an image scale?
Yeah.
You know, when was the last time Justin Trudeau cared about Canada? He forgot about Alberta in his 150th speech.
Yeah.
So again, if you're patriotic to Canada, why aren't you upset with those leaders? Why aren't you upset with the treatment you've been given?
Yeah. It makes no sense to me. You know, one of the videos that I've seen some people who are trying to troll me have published, and I don't really care, take whatever you want. But there's one where I'm talking to a homeless guy in Edmonton, and he's really down and out, but he's like all in favor, hoorah for Canada. And people have been saying, oh, this homeless guy schools me. You know, and first of all, what an insensitive thing to say. Like, they have no qualms with using people as their pawns, just like the way Nenshi uses the Indigenous chiefs. All right, this homeless guy is just a pawn for them. Look at, even that terrible guy is better than the independence guy, right? That's basically what they're saying. But all that aside, I don't understand that guy's perspective, because Canada has been so bad for him. Look at everything fell apart for him. He's not getting the support that he needs. And here's a group of people who say, we actually really want to support you. We want to keep our wealth and build our province up and be economically and take care of you.
Yeah.
And like, but there it is. He's buying into the patriotism.
It's crazy because some people just want to put up with the status quo because they're scared of change.
Yeah.
You know, change. This is where I was saying that it's a big question to ask
Yeah.
people. Are you ready to leave
Yeah.
the country? Some people just can't wrap that around their brains.
Yeah.
And it's not that they're stupid. It's that it's a big thing to consider.
Yeah.
So I empathize with those people, but at the same time, when you think about the homeless man, the biggest problem we've had so far in this movement is the lack of organization around answering some questions that he might have as to how can we make your life better
Yeah.
if Alberta were to leave?
Yeah.
Would that not be better if you love Canada because you say that it's your country and everything, but what if your new country could take better care of you?
Yeah.
What if we could give you a shelter? What if we weren't legalizing substances that were, maybe putting you on the street or giving you a hard time in life?
Yeah.
What if things could be better? I think that's the one question people aren't entertaining is, what is the other side? And I think that we don't have the full answers yet, but we need to get them quickly if we're going to get people on our side.
Yeah. Well, and there's all of these are good, reasonable arguments, right? And I think like reason is on our side and truth is on our side. And you'd say, well, the truth is going to win. But the other side is all emotion. It's like Canada, hoorah, hurrah, Canada's big. I love Canada. The flag is beautiful and we've been together for a long time. So we just got to stay together forever. Literally forever is a long time. And I told that to somebody. I'm like, really, forever?
Yeah.
Like, they don't even see the irony in that, right? But
it's funny because I always say that and everybody has said it already, but it's whipped like a dead horse. It's like the abusive spouse.
yeah,
I'm going to stay because I wouldn't survive if we split apart, Where would I go? How would I rebuild?
Yeah.
It's better to stay and get smacked around
Yeah.
than wake up and realize this isn't the right place for me.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is trying to get through. And much like a marriage, sometimes when you talk to your friend who's being abused, you can't get through to them. No matter how hard you try to point out the obvious and say, this isn't good for you.
Yeah.
Some people you just can't reach. And unfortunately, we're going to come across those hurdles as we move forward.
Yeah.
I think there are those who are so wrapped into Forever Canada the way we're wrapped into independence that there's no way of turning them around. I mean, you ask yourself, if Forever Canada came and talked to us tomorrow
Yeah.
about joining their side or believing in their push for, Canada to remain whole, we wouldn't turn around, at least unless they had a very good reason.
Well, okay, so this is a fun exercise, and I've done this a bunch of times in my video. And I fail every time because I'm really trying. But, like, what would actually change your mind?
Well,
Like, that's a fun thing to think of.
the only thing that would change my mind is a lot of the issues that stop Alberta from being successful within Canada. So
Okay.
we need to elect our own judges. We need the ability to defend ourselves in our homes, our own gun rights. We need the transfer payments to stop. Basically all the 9 questions that Danielle Smith is asking on October 19th. The problem with those questions, though,
Yeah.
is the way Canada is designed. 7 of 10 provinces have to agree that those things are fair for Alberta, and Quebec gets a veto.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that angle, like, you could easily say, I'd love to go to the negotiation table and I'd love to try and hammer out some of these things for Alberta. But the reality is 7 of 10 provinces aren't going to say,
Yeah.
go ahead and keep your money, we don't need it. They're always going to have an excuse.
Yeah.
So it
So-
only leaves us one option.
So what you're saying is, look, Canada, like, if we could fix Canada, then you'd agree to stay, you change your
Sure.
mind, but it can't be fixed.
We've tried.
Yeah.
We've tried for so long. You think back to Peter Lougheed in the National Energy Project days, the Trudeau Sr. giving everybody the finger on the train. I mean, people have been mad for decades,
Yeah.
and nothing has been fixed. You might get,
a little bit
sure,
more.
you might
Yeah.
get like a Stephen Harper or somebody, and don't think that I'm, promoting Stephen Harper. I think that he did good things, but he also did some rotten things. But that's politicians. That's
Yeah.
the political game.
Yeah.
I think when you narrow it down, the question you have to ask yourself is, what has the system done for us over time that has made things better for us?
Yeah.
And when you really look down to it, it's nothing.
Yeah.
If you look at our politics, cities and provinces is really what affects your day-to-day life more than anything.
Yeah.
The federal end of things are little bits.
Yeah.
But those little bits for Alberta mean transfer payments. It means no rights. It means no elected judges.
Yeah.
It means censorship.
Yeah.
And those are big things. It also means mass immigration if they say so.
Yeah.
So unless we can squash those things, and that's been one of my talking points with people who are against independence is, well, let's say you go out and vote in favor of independence. And let's say we get 46% of the vote on October 19th. That would actually give us a large bargaining chip to go to the table and show the rest of Canada that, hey, you need to take this serious,
Yeah.
or we're going to go next time.
Yeah.
So I believe, while people say that the referendum could be destructive on investment on businesses, what investment have we seen in the last 10 years?
We've
Nothing.
already lost it all.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So I think realistically, anybody who's on the middle ground who says, well, I'm not ready to leave Canada yet, you should still vote for independence, because there's a good chance that we've got a bargaining chip at the table if things fail. So,
And I have met people like that. There was a guy in my video with Kathy Flett
Yep.
who said exactly that. He was playing Frisbee with his dog, and he's like, That's exactly it. I think we're going to lose independence, but I'm going to vote for it because it'll give us a better bargaining position.
Yep.
So, look, that is a strong position to take. I personally don't take it, but I'm never going to discourage someone from having it.
It's a very risky position to take, because if I were a betting person, it's kind of saying, are you ready to go all in on the chance you might lose? Because the people who are voting for that don't want to leave Canada. But at the same time, again, it's like the old Janet Jackson song of, what have you done for me lately? You know, that's what people have to start asking in Canada.
Yeah. What have you done for me lately? So, but I like this because I feel like it's intellectually honest. If we can say the reasons, like the things that would change our mind. So then I would post this same challenge to anybody who's watching this, because anybody who's watched this long and you don't support it, I'm amazed, right? But if you don't support independence, leave a comment below what would change your mind, because I'll tell you the things that would change my mind. Abolish the monarchy, rewrite the Constitution. I want rights that are guaranteed, no ways that they can be infringed. Free speech, bodily autonomy, property rights, self-defense rights.
Yep.
You know, there's a whole list of things, and no way can they infringe on any of that. That's a good start. That would probably get me to rethink, you know, independence. That's basically independence for Canada then.
Yeah, well, and that would be so beneficial, not only for us, like you said, but for everybody else. I think that when we get down to it, it's the one thing I've told those who say, well, I'm upset that you don't cover federal politics as much as you used to. I've always said, well, because it's all bad news.
Yeah.
And the reason being is that this is an opportunity for us to get things better. And if Alberta left Canada, Canada would actually improve. And it's the one argument I keep trying to make with people, because if Alberta left, not like suddenly we have a bargaining chip at the table, because BC has to move their goods through Alberta via rail, via road. They don't want to go around. It's not feasible financially.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden that gives us a change in the status quo. We actually mean something at the table. So we would have access to Tidewater, because first off, another country can't deny you access according to the UN convention.
Yeah.
So they would have to find some way to do some sort of deal with us based on the fact that they need our roads and rail.
Yeah.
The rest of Canada still needs the goods that we provide them, so we would still be at the table with them, but they would actually have to listen to us.
Yeah. Listen.
And in exchange, we'd work alongside Canada, that things would improve with other provinces because they'd have to get their act together. So when people say, oh, all you're doing is being wrapped up in Alberta. No, this is how I think we fix the country, is by giving it a wake-up call.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like getting the defibrillator on you when you're on your way of crashing out. It's kind of reviving everything and saying, look, things are changing a little bit, but it means more prosperity for everybody.
Wouldn't it be ironic if Alberta separates, Saskatchewan joins us, Quebec goes their own way, 20 years go by, we've all straightened out our SHIT, and then now we actually vote to come back together?
You know, the question I always ask people is, if it were switched around right now, if Alberta was already its own republic and Canada was asking us, Mark Carney came to us tomorrow and said, I'd like you to join Canada. Would you vote to join Canada given its current economic state?
No.
So probably no. Probably no. So then why would we vote to stay in it? You know, like that's my thing.
Yeah. Well, and that's the best, I think, kind of rhetorical thing. But at the same time, like, it kind of goes all the way back to the beginning. Like, we have a lot of arguments, good, reasonable arguments, and the other side is all just emotion and fear. Patriotism, fear, nostalgia, things like that. How do we overcome that? Because, like, reasonable arguments, I don't think will do it. Like, how do we get people to actually feel, because I call myself John Alberta Patriot. I really, like, look at this big blue flag. I really love this flag. You know, and I really love this province and I love this land, and sometimes I think about it, it actually brings a tear to my eye to think about what we could have. I'm not even lying about that.
You know,
how do we get people to feel that way?
I've talked on my live streams about my history with Alberta, that when my father brought us here from Manitoba in 1995, I was 15 years old, and I asked him, why are we going to Alberta? You know, my friends were back home, I grew up there, and he says Alberta and Calgary in particular at that time were the land of opportunity. He says, if you want a job, you can get one in a day if you're willing to get your hands dirty, if you're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
It's a place where if you work hard, you get big rewards. Companies will train from within. You don't see that anymore. But I think back to what Alberta has given myself, the ability to grow my own family, to have my own success, and at least get away from a lot of the taxation that comes from the rest of the country. But at the same time, when I look at what's happening to Alberta, when you look at how things could be significantly better,
Yeah.
you know, you have to ask yourself the question of how long am I willing to put up with the status quo because of nostalgia
Yeah.
before I'm ready to actually say, look, this is the time to change. Things could be better.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason people resonate with what we do on Unacceptable Fringe is that I try to relate to them.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do with the middle ground, is start asking them the questions of, how are you managing your day-to-day these days? Because anytime I go to the grocery store, everybody's complaining about the cost. You know, at the gas station, everybody's complaining about the cost of filling up their cars. I see people at the bank down to their last $20 because they got to pay their rent or their mortgage.
Yeah.
Those are the questions you have to start asking people is, are you finding it easy to live in this climate? And if they say no, okay, so if you're against leaving, why would you want to stay if this is your life? When realistically we leave, and it doesn't happen overnight. I think that's the one misconception people have. Alberta leaves and then all of a sudden things are fabulous. No, I put it back to the equivalency of going into business for yourself. You know, we have the client list, we have the ability to make the money, but we have to invest and it takes time.
Yeah.
So after a couple of years of really getting down to, you know, basics, we could have a very profitable province and people's lives could become a lot better, but it's going to take time and investment. And once that happens, you'll have people who were on the middle ground or even people who were against that suddenly say, boy, I should have got on the fence about this ages ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm hoping. I really am. I think that we got an uphill battle to face. We got to win the hearts and minds of people, and one conversation at a time. That's a good action point.
Yeah. It's winnable if we do the work and we're prepared to listen. I think this is the time to listen. I think we can get it done if we work hard.
Yeah. Okay, so then another action point for us. We got to get a few other creators together.
Yes.
And we got to talk behind the scenes about how we want to do this, but we got to have like some sort of events or something, public square. It could be everybody filming their own stuff, or we could just kind of all support each other and take turns or something. We got to brainstorm ideas.
It's so funny because people always say to me when I talk to other creators, and not in Alberta, but I've talked to other creators that I know on the platform, whether they're in politics or gaming or anything else, and they always say, look, YouTube's a business. I don't like cross-pollinating. I don't like bringing people on my channel. Guys, if you're in Alberta, this is the time to put your egos aside. This is the time to say we're doing what's beneficial for Alberta. It's not about clicks and views. It's not about money. We all need to work together as a team if we're going to get this done. We have influence. We have the ability. Let's use it like a tool and get us over the finish line. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's so well said. And I mean, I humbly say that from, like, you're a much more successful creator. I'm not really even doing, I'm like new to this, right? But, you know, for you to say that, let's use our influence for a really good cause. One more thing for the camera. I always give one more thing. Say one more thing for the camera. It always stumps people. I got to work on that.
One more thing for the camera. One more thing.
Hey, thank you everybody for watching. Please like, comment, and
There you go.
subscribe.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. Great studio again. I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please go follow his channel as well. Cheers, everybody.
Take care.
That was fun.